Alright guys, I'm now going to go through mid-segment practice 2 with you. It says find the midpoint of the line segment with the given endpoints. So our first point is 2, 6, and the next one is 6, 1. And I want to find the point that's halfway between those. Now, one way you can do this is you can take the two x values and you can put them on a number line. Okay? So I need to go from 2 to 6. I'm going to do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So here and here. Okay? If I draw that line, I can work my way to the center of it. So over 1, it looks like the center is going to be right here at 4. Okay? So when I write my final answer, I'm going to have 4 as my x. Okay? Now, I can do the same thing with the y's. Okay? You don't have to do think about the y-axis and graphing it being vertical. You don't have to do it as vertical. We absolutely could, though, if we want to. For the sake of space or whatever, I'm going to just do it in a different color. Okay? And this one needs to go from 1 to 6. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Okay? And then I need to go 6 and 1, or 1 and 6. Draw your line, and the halfway point here looks to be, or is, halfway between those two. So it's going to be here, which is 3.5, or 3.5. So 3.5, or 3.5, perfectly acceptable. And that is my midpoint. Okay? Now, that is the first way to do it. There is a second way to do it. In my opinion, once you get the hang of this, this is much easier. So the first thing we could do is we're going to add our x's together. This is the way Miss Lowry did it in her video. So we're going to take the x's and we're going to add those together. 2 plus 6. And then we're also going to add our y's together. 6 plus 1. Okay, when we do that, we get 8, 7. Okay, and the last step is going to be to take that point and do half of each of those values. Okay, so divide each of those by 2. And what that leaves us with is 4, 3.5. Okay? And that's what I'm going to do for the rest of these examples, but if it would help you out, you can absolutely draw a number line and put the points on that number line. Okay? So, for number 2, I'm going to add my x's together. Negative 4 plus 3. Okay? And I'm going to add my y's together. 1 plus 6. When I do that, I get negative 1 and 7. Okay? And then that will be our new point. And we're going to do half of that point, or half of the x and half of the y. So that's going to be negative 0.5, comma, 3.5. Okay? And I'm just going to continue that process for each of these. Now, another thing you could do, if you had graph paper and you wanted to draw yourself a graph and plot the points that way and find the halfway point, you absolutely could. Okay? Here we go. We got negative 2 plus 0, and then we've got negative 1 plus negative 3. Okay? So that's negative 2, comma, negative 4. I'm going to take half of those, which means my final answer is negative 1, negative 2. For number 4, 4 plus 6, comma, 4 plus 1. Okay, that'd be 10, 5. Half of that is 5, 2.5, or 2.5, whichever one you prefer. Okay, so or 5, 2.5. All right, negative 6 plus 6. No, I'm sorry, plus negative 6. And then 0 plus 0. So I have negative 12, 0. Okay, when I take half of negative 12, I'm going to get negative 6. And when I take half of 0, I'm going to get 0. Now, if we go back and think about that, that one's a little unique. These are the same point, which meant there's really no line. There's just that point. Well, the midpoint of the same point is that point. Okay, if you were to graph that, all you would have is a dot. All you'd have is a single individual point. Okay? So, kind of tricked you on that one, or made that one a little bit tricky looking. Alright, here we go. Keep going. Negative 2 plus 4, and then negative 2 plus 1. So we're going to have positive 2 and negative 1. We got to remember to take half of those. We end up with 1 and negative 1/2, or negative 0.5. Alright, only 2 left on the front, and then we're going to talk about how to handle the graphs on the back. So, negative 2 plus 4, negative 3 plus 4, we get 2 and 1, half of each, 1 and 1/2. Okay, the next one, negative 2 plus 4. We're already getting pretty good at the process by now. 2 plus, again, if you needed to graph these on a number line or draw an actual XY chart graph, you absolutely could. So that would be 2, and this would be negative 4. And then when I take half of each of those, I end up with 1, negative 2. Okay? Now let's look at how we would handle the graphs. Okay? We're going to handle these very much the same way we did before. All we're going to do, we're actually going to do this a couple of different ways, but the easiest way is to do it just like you did the previous page and write down what these points are. So this first point is negative 2, 4, negative 2, 4, and the point over here is 3, negative 4. So 3, negative 4. Okay, and then I'm going to do the same thing I did before. I'm going to do negative 2 plus 3 and 4 plus negative 4. Okay, and then that's going to be positive 1, that's going to be 0, and then I'm going to do half of each of those. So that's 1/2, 0. Okay, 0 divided by 2 is 0. So that means that the midpoint is 1/2, 0. Okay? Now, there is another way you could have done this. Okay, and I'm going to do this in some different colors for you. You could have turned this into a right triangle. Okay? And you could have found the halfway mark for the orange line and the halfway mark for the green line. So for the orange line, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So half of that would be 2.5. So 1, 2.5. That'd be about right here. So if you come down, there's that midpoint for the x values. We can do the same thing with the y values. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So we only need 4 for half of that. So 1, 2, 3, 4. That's the halfway point. And look at where those two meet and intersect. It is at 1/2, 0. Okay? It is completely up to you whether you draw it out on the graphs or if you do this method right here. Okay? Completely up to you. Alright, let's continue on with the next one, number 2. Okay? So, write down the points. If you want to do the drawing method, go ahead. I'm going to write down the points and do it this same method that I could use on both front and back. Okay? Alright, so the first point I'm going to write down is negative 1, 5. And the second point is negative 3, 0. Okay? So, negative 1 plus negative 3, comma, and then 5 plus 0. And so what we're going to end up with there is negative 4 and 5. And we need to take half of both of those. So negative 2 and 2 and 1/2. Okay? Again, at any point, if you need to pause these videos and kind of check your own work as you go, that's what these are for. We're trying to make sure you understand the mistakes you made on certain sections before you take the assessment over this particular skill set. Alright, so the next one is 1, 5. and 3, negative 2. Okay, we're going to do 1 plus 3 and 5 plus negative 2. That would be 4 and positive 3. Take half of each of those. And our final answer here is 2 and then 1 and 1/2. Okay, again, feel free to go back and plot it and make sure. Right 2 up 1.5. That is indeed the midpoint of that line. Okay, I should have done that on the previous one. Let's go back to that. Negative 2 up 2.5. That is indeed the midpoint of that line. Okay, 3 left to go. Let's keep it going. Negative 2, negative 1. So, and then over here we got 3, 0. Alright, so we're going to have negative 2 plus 3, comma, negative 1 plus 0. Close those parentheses. Alright, go ahead and simplify that. That's going to be 1 and negative 1. And then we are going to take half of each of those. So positive 1/2 and negative 1/2. Okay, so positive 1/2, negative 1/2 puts me right here, which is in the middle. Very short line on this next one. Could be a little tricky. Let's see. 2, negative 1 for the first point. For the second point is 1, negative 2. 1, negative 2. All right, here we go. That would be 2 plus 1, comma, negative 1 plus negative 2. Okay, so that gives me 3, negative 3. And when I take half of that, that is 1 and 1/2 and negative 1 and 1/2. So 1.5 down 1.5, that's going to be right there in the middle. Okay. And the final one, we have 1, 0 and 5, 1. So to find that midpoint, or the mid segment, the mid part of that segment, what I'm going to do is add those together. 5 plus 1 and 1 plus 0. Take half of each, which would be 3 and 1/2. Okay, so write 3 from that first point, 1, 2, or right over to 3. So 1, 2, 3, and then up 1/2. And there it is. Okay. All right, guys. Make sure you look through and see what you got right, see what you got wrong. Ask. Feel free to email us any questions you have, and then be prepared for tomorrow's formative assessment. Okay. Good luck.